All right, we are live. Rock on. So, welcome everyone to the stream. This is Gaming in the Keats, and I am your host, Chris, joined by yet another Chris, who is a member of the Titans of Ninth Gaming Club. Say hello, Chris.
Hello. Oh man, Stottle's going to make me have to turn on my camera. Hold on, see if it will work. See which camera it'll take. Oh yeah, there you go, guys.
There we go. There's that
Oh
handsome.
gosh, well if you're turning on your camera, well let's join the party, and if I can figure out how to do that. How do you do that?
I don't know, man. You got a Mac. I can't help you.
Well, yeah, anyway, I'll figure it out later. So I mean the logo is important, right? So then welcoming to the channel, we got Ryan Stottle.
Hey everybody. Representing the Philly crew here.
Got your green dragon shirt on.
Hey, I got one of them too over there.
Oh, hey. Where is it? Put that bad boy on.
Hey, no poaching. No.
Well, it was the one from Dallas because I went with you guys to NATC. So
hear that, Chris? The other Chris traveled all the way to Dallas with us.
Ouch.
I don't know if I should be hurt. You know.
No. I was saying ouch for you, Chris. Like that's a long way.
Honestly, it was a good time.
Yeah, y'all did really well. It was like second place, wasn't it not?
We were fighting in the last round for first place.
Yeah, that was a fun time. Great barbecue too.
Oh yeah. It was really good.
Why don't we, barbecue aside, before I get too hungry, why don't we go into the list? So we're doing hold on. First, let's go to the event. We're doing the Titans Vault team tournament. I want it to be a team tournament, but it's
look, I had to figure out how many people we'd have because I couldn't just do a team tournament right out the gate, especially not with the potential new people. So I had to just do a 1-round or a 3-round 1 day singles, figure out how many people we have, and then from there, if we want to start doing team tournaments and everything, as long as we have the turnout, down for it.
So Chris, why don't you describe briefly what this 1 day event will entail?
Yeah. So like I said, it's 1 day, 3-round. We were really trying to put together something that would be a bit more beginner friendly, and we do have a handful of beginners joining us. These are they're not their first games; it will be their first events. And we were just looking to not only test out the new edition, but also try out the seasons pack in a more structured event, because play on a random Saturday, you might get 1 or 2 games in, but an actual structured 3-game event where you get to see the results of everything and matchup dependent, it gives us a lot of good data. And we haven't really done a major event, at least most of us haven't really done anything in third yet, so it'll be nice to get going.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing all the Green Dragon people coming down as well. We haven't had a big brouhaha in a while.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it too. Thanks, Chris, for putting this together.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I'll be picking up Mark on Saturday, and we'll head down together. But getting into the first matchup, another longtime Green Dragon. Chris, you're playing Dan first.
And this was a grudge match.
This was a grudge match. Yes, I grudged Dan mainly because I wanted an excuse to bring my my old German steins, drinking beer steins, and we can drink beer together while we play. So.
Beautiful.
So we need to take that into account for their round 2 and round 3 matchups. They're going to get hammered in round 1. So,
well, hold on. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, I might want to get hammered after I face this list here.
Yeah, we were actually talking about this list earlier, and I think some of the rules in 3rd edition as they stand are really going to benefit Massed Infantry Empire, specifically the surrounded rules and his countercharge abilities.
So yeah, well, who wants to take Dan's list? Just go through it.
I could do it just because this one's pretty simple. And it's been a while, but I'm glad Dan's going to be there. That's going to be a lot of fun. This is, for those of you that don't know Dan, this is very much a typical Dan list. Dan just breaks all sorts of records for number of models on the table. So my count is 275 infantry for this particular list, and if you're going by models, it's 287
because of the 10 knightly orders and the and
the mounted characters. So there's no magic. There's very little shooting, but this is Dan's style. Like, he's just going to beat you to death with rank and flank and like war of attrition. You know, the Empire rules are still there, where if you charge the parent unit, the support unit, or like the detachment unit, whatever they call it now, can countercharge. So you have to be really careful going into some of these bigger blocks, because you can get those countercharges off. The Knight Commander has the Light of the Sandstall, which still works the way it did previously. So it wounds automatically and it's AP 10. So he's pretty scary against a lot of stuff. He gets a 4-up Aegis against magical attacks.
See, I'm a little... I don't know how I feel about that shield, because it's kind of expensive. Like, it's 35 points for that Witchfire Guard, and it's only an Aegis versus magical attacks. Like, it feels... It doesn't, like, it'd be one thing if it was like, oh, it's 3-up Aegis, normally 5-up versus magical. Like, if you give him the Ghostly Aegis or something.
Yeah.
But it literally only does stuff versus magical attacks.
He's got a 1-up armor save to start with. So I think the thought is the things that could really hurt him, which are other characters, most of them are going to have like magic weapons. So
that's fair. Yeah, if he goes to fight a character, in most scenarios, they are going to have magic weapons. So
yeah, and he's on a horse, so he's pretty mobile. So, but yeah, situationally, he could be without the Aegis save. And then, so really, it's a very straightforward list. I'm interested to hear Chris's thoughts on the matchup after he goes over his list, but the flagellants are like the hardest part of this list to deal with. So they're stubborn and unstable. So they do crumble, but they're going to like cut the combat res in half.
So it's the same trick that I've been pulling with my skeletons. Is you put a stubborn character in there, so the unit's stubborn, so it cuts the losses in half. And then after you cut it in half, because of the BSB and steady and steadfast, assuming you have all of them, you take 3 off the top of that as well. So they can really stick around. They're not unbreakable anymore, but they're pretty close.
And they don't even need the character to be stubborn. Like, they just get it.
Yeah, they just are.
Immediately. And they have Fury, which is old battle focused. They're Strength 5, AP 2. They're great weapons, but they're only removed after Agility 0. So essentially, they're always going to get their attacks.
Yeah.
No matter what. And then the other odd part about them is they don't have any saves. They're only res 3. But in melee, you have to re-roll successful to wound rolls against them. So they're tougher than you think. And there's 90 of them. So
there's 90 of them.
There's also that. So yeah, I love this list. I think this is going to be, I anticipate definitely Chris and Dan are going to be drunk and just having an absolute blast playing their round 1 matchup, and it's just going to be a bloody mess. The first game with deployment and scenario, I'll just comment on that too. I like, Chris, what you chose for it. So it's Spearhead with secure target. So the Spearhead kind of gives you like a little bit of a nudge. You can have like the 3-inch vantage.
So I tried to make packs that made sense. So both Spearhead and Secure Target care about the table being divided into thirds, because you have your thirds for your Vanguard, but the Secure Target objectives are also in the center of the table on each of the thirds. So it kind of lined up. It seemed like an interesting combo of stuff.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think it's great too for like, especially round 1, because of the nudge forward you can take, and then the secure tokens are in the middle of the board and they start scoring during the game. You don't just score them at the end. It forces you to like engage your opponent. Like, you're going to be fighting or competing over the middle.
I don't know if Dan's going to watch this, but they score during the game. Remember that this time. I played him round 1 in our last tournament of last edition with a very similar list, and he forgot that they scored like during the game. He thought they just scored at the end, so it scores during the game. Remember that; it's important.
Now,
Remember
an interesting thing to note here about the spearhead wording is that, from my understanding, you can have both you and your opponent can have any number of scoring units within 6 inches of it, but and if you have 2 and I have 1, no one scores it. From my understanding of that, is that correct?
Because you talking about the secure target?
Yes.
Hold on. Well, give me a second.
Because it just says each person has to have at least one. You have to have at least one scoring unit within 6 inches of it, and your opponent has to have none in order to count as scoring it, like getting the victory token.
Yeah, if so you can have 4 there. If your opponent has even 1, you don't get the point.
Right. So that's interesting, because in some way this could really benefit Dan, and otherwise it might actually. I mean, I agree with you, Ryan, that it forces, like, say, the person with the least amount of scoring units to certainly go at it, right? To, like, take away those scoring units so that they can score the primary.
Right.
I'm going to go, let's see, I'm going to scroll,
so
you have to realize, though, Dan only has 2 scoring units.
I was just
right.
It only, because he only has the banner.
He only has 2 flags, so he only has 2 scoring units.
He has 3. The knights are scoring, right?
Yes, they have a banner.
Yeah, 3. I'm sorry, I missed the knights flag. Yeah, 2 blocks of heavy infantry and the knights. Nothing else is scoring.
Good catch. All right,
that's an interesting wrinkle. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Well, no, that changes my perspective. Okay, so I'll go through mine. This is Dread Elves, so I'm doing I'm trying to channel my inner Phil Carl here as best as you can with elves.
Oh, don't do that.
Don't do that.
But yeah, so we're rocking a Beastmaster on a Manticore and just 2 assassins for the characters. Again, no magic. I'm trying to utilize just all the different innate rules of the models to just benefit myself in the close combat. And so we just basically have the big unit of spears with sheltering standard. I think sheltering standard is just so good. Like,
basically always have a
sheltering standard. Sheltering standard needs to either be points increased or slightly changed, because it's very good. I mean, it does still require you to roll 6s to save, but it gives you a chance.
But it effectively negates like the elves, for example, only have like light armor shield most of the time, and so like it's negating like all that AP2 and AP3 that's going to be probably coming into them. So it still gives you a chance, and so we have just a small little auxiliary unit that does not score. Just some, Shadow Riders for getting in the way and dying for the cause. 2 big units of Thunder Pack that I'm trying out, the Dancers of Yema. I've been really enjoying them, especially with the sheltering standard. They tend to stick around longer than you think.
For those of us in the back that don't know what all this elven tomfoolery is, could you explain Dancers of Yema?
Yeah, so Dancers of Yema are like the old... they went back to the old, like, sort of Sisters of Slaughter vibe in Warhammer 8th edition, where they have a 5-up Aegis in close combat, and they have, in this case, they have Weapon Master. So they can, in this version, they can take spears, great weapons, paired weapons, and they get +1 attack, first strike +1 attack. And so that can be a very it's a very toolboxy unit, and of course
pretty durable.
And pretty durable, exactly. And then when you put a silent assassin in there, surprise, it's going in there. It just adds that extra bit of, now the silent assassins, they have 5 attacks each.
Do they do the whole hidden thing where they pop up out of a unit?
Yeah, they still do that, and they have that like professional killer rule, I think. I'm not sure if they actually got rid of that in this edition. I will have to double check this unless someone can check me on this now.
I can look it up. Yeah.
But the professional killer thing is like you can decline a duel and not receive the penalty for declining a duel with them.
Oh, well, that's useful.
Let's go over these assassins, because you took 2 of them.
I did.
And that's pretty mean of you. Yeah, so they are exclusive to units without silent assassins. You can't put both in one unit.
Yeah.
They're hidden.
Oh, so it's not the Skaven assassins that all three pop up in the same unit.
No,
Eat some poor dude.
No, you only need one. Trust me. Not a hero. They have distracting, defensive skill 8, offensive skill 9 because they pair weapons, 5 attacks, strength 4, AP 3, agility 9. They gain +1 to wound the first round. They have poison attacks. They reroll to wound against characters. That's what I see here.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they're just designed to pop up and eat something.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Or just take one for the team, quite honestly. Like
pop up and accept the challenge that.
Yep.
Now you do have to pop them up at the beginning of a turn, right? You can't get into combat and be like, "Oh, hey,
correct.
By the way,
I do have to declare it at the beginning of the turn." But quite honestly, unless I really feel cheeky and putting one in my auxiliaries, like we got one for the spears and one for the temple militants, I don't think there's too many tricks there. And then so to continue on, we got the 9 dread acolytes. So these are not the magic users; these are the combat ones, and these guys are also surprisingly nasty. Like because now they for the combat version they get the artistry of death rule, so that means they always have +1 to wound, and they gain an extra attack with paired weapons. So each model puts out 3 attacks from the rider and 1 attack from the horse.
And then because they're height 2, they could still be doing 2 attacks from the back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're now with paired weapons. They're offense 7,
ignoring parry.
6, yeah, and agility 6 now because so now with all the elven infantry, it's like a sort of a base stat line of offense, defense, agility 6, except for the temple militants.
Well, they took away lightning reflexes, so they took away like the innate +1 to hit.
Yeah.
Elves, so they increased the soft stats, which I kind of like, especially for the defensive skill boost.
Yeah, I never liked to just have a +1 to hit. Like I get if you want to like soft stat increase them because their elves are like more nimble and all that kind of stuff, but I never liked the just +1 to hit.
So we got some cheeky about the temple stuff. It gets the fury bonus from the altar 12 inches away instead of the regular 6. So the altar gives out 6 inches the fury to keyword elf, and then 12 inches for any temple unit. So they can play a little bit further out. Something to note for people is that the Beastmaster gives the Thunderpack currently Dying Blow. So they're effectively the same as the Flagellants in that they will always get to strike.
Yeah.
Assuming that the model is there, before the round of combat.
That's dirty. And then the altar gives the unit that it's in stubborn as well.
Correct. Yes.
And those the guys on the altar are pretty good in combat. That's like 9 attacks, battle focus, strength AP1.
Is that terror altar that is always lurking behind everybody's lines, or is that a different altar?
This is the one that goes into the spears, like it goes into the unit.
Yeah. Yes. So that unit of 34 spears basically becomes a unit of like 40, like effectively.
So, and then we don't have a super killy Manticore, but she's offense defense 11, which I find really funny. So, she's there to babysit the Thunderpack and be annoying.
And she's got a breath weapon.
She does, yes. I figured.
Yeah, you should get good use out of that breath weapon because like 2 days after we did the rules cutoff, they changed breath weapons back to 1 use only. So
this one's a 1 use only anyway. Like it's it's this.
Oh, it's the Dragon's Brew. Okay, well then you're good. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. So I was just so annoyed with one of my games playing against Saurian Ancients where they had the Pterodon riders doing the drop rocks and they can do it like every turn. So I was like, nope, I need a breath weapon. So that's why I did that. But why don't we continue on to the actual.
One thing before we continue on, I'm really interested to see how many people are at because I haven't reviewed. I mean, I checked them to make sure they weren't, illegal, but I haven't reviewed any of these lists yet. I'm really interested to see how many people take Magic because it's in a kind of weak spot at the moment. I think it's getting better now that they've reduced the cost of some of the master spells and given you a free dice for it being your turn, and like they're moving back in the right direction where you might be seeing it again. But I don't think it's where it was last edition, especially bound spells. I don't want to be started on bound spells, but I'd be interested to see how many people actually take magic.
Yeah, so far 0 magic.
Yeah, so far first round matchup, no magic,
and very little shooting.
Yeah, exactly. Who needs shooting and magic? It's all about dice, combat. Just a quick shout out here. James has entered the chat, and I just want to say happy birthday, James. It is his birthday.
That's right. It is. Happy birthday, James.
So
cheers. Happy birthday.
Cheers. All right. Thoughts on the match. Why don't y'all do your predictions, and then I'll chime in.
So I am inclined to lean it to you because you're playing elves, and I don't think I've ever won against dark elves in my life. It's just a silly book in my opinion. But I like where Dan's head at. I think he has with the whole countercharge rule with surrounded. I think he's going to be a standout. Honestly, I think he's going to be able to use the core rules to his advantage. I think he might do well this weekend.
Yeah, I don't think that this is going to be lopsided either way. I think it's going to be a bloody mess in the middle. But I would agree with Chris that I think the emo elves have a little bit of an advantage here. My reasoning is that while Dan has a ton of bodies, in one-on-one matchups, you're going to win all of these fights.
And a lot of your stuff has a ton of attacks at like lower, like you don't have any big punchy attacks as much, but
and outside the flagellants, like you can break his stuff like in a round of combat. So, I mean, I think the key for you, Chris, a couple things. One is that you just got to make sure you don't give Dan that easy, like when you charge in, he just gets to flank you with like a support unit thing. So you just got to be careful with that. Like, and then the other key for you is dealing with the flagellants. And I think you do have some tools. I think the tools for you to deal with the flagellants are, you don't have a lot of shooting, but that's the unit you target with the auxiliaries. And then you hit them with the thunder packs as best you can. But your Dread Prince is going to be able to go wherever she wants. Basically, you could fly her around. She's going to go into whatever combat you need help with. So I do give you a slight nod. You just got to make sure you get out of the fights quickly, and then you allocate enough resources to break the units. And I think for Dan, the key for him is he needs to like force you in uncomfortable situations, and his militia, the little bit of shooting he does have, are going to be really key. He's got to like whittle down some of your units and be able to like clog up and chaff up your thunder pack. And
this is really going to come down to, can Dan get you in the flank with his units that have ranks and just break you and run you down?
Which he definitely can. Like, it's not easy to avoid the flanks on Dan. So, and then I'm just looking at your list, Chris, too, if you could scroll down a little bit again.
I mean, James isn't wrong. Dan doesn't have any of the normal Empire support pieces, no prelates, no magic, no carts or anything like that. But I mean, I honestly think surrounded is strong enough that he might still get you. Like, he just by itself.
He definitely can. And you have some AP, but not a ton to deal with, like the Knight unit and the Soundstall guy. So, like, if he gets that in the right place, that could be helpful. So again, I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to give a slight nod to the Dread Elves here.
Well,
on paper, I think you do have it, Chris, but it really will come down to, I think, playing on this one.
Perhaps the beer will decide. I think if I was to rate this, I would give me a soft, like a light green. And I think it is very, but unstable. And I mean unstable in the sense that, you know, the moment you start engaging in combat, you are now you're depending on like rolling dice at this rate. And like there are certain things, for example, like I agree, Stottle, that the Thunder Pack is probably my best answer for his flagellants just because, but even then it's tough because like with advantage position, they're going to be getting +1 to wound against me.
You're going to use you're going to lose the Thunder Pack. And it's unfortunate because they're expensive. They're 510 points. But I think you have to like make your peace that like you're going to like lose your Thunder Pack to soften up the flagellants so they don't like run over the rest of your army, basically.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think I don't think Dan needs to be aggressive at all. Like I think he just needs to utilize that whole what is it called? Like the detached,
the countercharge with the parent and child units is going to be his biggest thing here because if you just get into one of the parent units, it's just like cool. All right, well now you have 4 less ranks, and I also surround you, so it's just the whole thing.
I think it's going to be a slog for sure, but I think it's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun.
Oh, it's always fun playing it.
I wish I could watch you guys play, to be honest. Like, this is going to be such a fun game. The other thing to consider, too, is the terrain and the board. Because Dan's army is tough to deploy and fit everything.
It's just a lot of dudes.
And so, like, if you utilize the terrain well, like, it can make Dan's life harder, especially if he has to like maneuver around impassable and things like that. So, really matchup.
Another thing to note with Spearhead is you only have 9 inches to deploy. You don't have 12. You only have 9.
So he effectively really has to go wide.
Yeah, he's going to be wide because he doesn't have any other choices.
Which does spread out his because I don't see anything in his list that like extends his commanding presence at all.
No, it's just going to be a bubble around his commander there.
And something to note is that the Thunder Pack do have devastating charge terror.
Yeah.
No, that might come into play for sure.
So that is we'll
see.
I
mean, yeah, the Flaggies don't need it. He can leave the Flaggies out in the wings.
Right.
And
they don't
whatever.
And he doesn't care about the militia.
No, then state militia is going to be doing their own things. It's honestly just the 2 blocks of 40, which the general, I'm sure, no, they're on a horse, so they'll be in the night unit. So it's the night unit, the 2 blocks of 40, and then the 3, which is still a lot of blocks of dudes. But
all right,
yeah, let's move on to the next one.
Yeah,
before we're here all night.
Went at it. Yeah. All right. So let's go. Match 2. We got a new person, or is this person new?
Yes. So this is one of my friends. This is actually my friend that came to, he roomed with me in Dallas, even though he didn't play the game. He went down there with me to, keep me company inside a roommate and everything. But he was interested in trying it. So we've done a couple games, and he's just using my ogres. And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll come play. So this is his first like real serious game, like not versus me.
And you fed him against Mark.
He knows Mark because Mark was down there with us, and I very specifically asked Mark, can I throw Michael into you game 1, because I wanted to give him to somebody who would help him with the rules, because there's a couple new people here, and I wanted to give them people they were either familiar with or that I thought would be good for them to fight round 1. And Mark can be savage, but he's also a very good teacher. So I thought this would be a good matchup for him. I'll go over the list because, quite frankly, I wrote it. This is just my big stompy ogres list that I like playing. I don't know if it's any good, but I find it fun. Mammoth Hunter, Rock, Lance, 4-hole binding, Yeti Furs, Rotten Jaw. So he's immune to poison. He has poisoned attacks as well, but he's immune to poison, which is a big thing for the Rock because it's like T7, T8, something like that.
Now, can I ask a question about that, Chris?
Yeah.
Because I think a mistake might have been made here. It says in the Ogre book, Rotten Jaws models on foot only.
Then that is definitely something that new recruit allowed me to do that it shouldn't have let me do, and I will fix that. But that was... there was no errors in the list, so it was a new recruit error. So I'll fix that. So I may have to adjust this list slightly, but it'll just be small things, right? Mm-hmm. But it's a big dude on an angry mount with a lance that removes your saves essentially, because it's a lance, so it's like AP4, and you have to reroll successful saves. He hits things, he does damage.
Reroll successful armor and special saves.
Yes. So the thought here was Lance is already deleting most of your armor save. So you have to reroll successful 5 or 6s, and then whatever special save you have. It was the best option I could make to like actually get him to go through something.
And your -1 agility in contact.
Because of the Yeti furs. The Yeti furs are also there because he gives him Strider. So he doesn't just like trip over a tree or something stupid.
Yeah, all those wounds matter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I might have to fix Rotten Jaw. I'll double check. What version of the book are you in, by the way? Because is it using the old one or the new one they put out?
I think it's the new one.
Yeah, I see the same thing. It's the new one.
Yeah, I'll double check that. So I may have to fix this. Of course, the list I wrote was the one that was illegal, right?
Well, it's your tournament, I guess. You.
I just did what New Recruit told me. Don't yell at me.
You just make whatever rules you want, Chris.
Yeah. And then you have the my Death Star unit. I like my Death Star units. Great Con, Destiny's Call, great weapon with Eldritch Inscriptions, which is First Strike, Zeal, and Hatred.
And that's rerolls to hit and wound, right?
Yeah, on the first turn. Headhunter is the thing that he heals with, and then oh my god, my mind is blanking on the last thing. You have the book up. Tell me what it does.
It's he has afflict -2 offensive skill.
Yes, of course. So he's harder to hit back.
He's effectively defensive skill 8.
Yes,
like, for all intents and purposes, but it also helps with the unit that he's in too.
Which is sometimes an issue with I've found with people hitting my poor ogres. Now they do have parry, so it does balance out. But
yeah, I wish those were bruisers, but yeah.
I like the tribesmen with iron fists, which is why I run them. But I do see the benefit in bruisers. They do tend to chew through things a lot better. Anyway, yeah, so then you have the battle standard bearer. This is the crux of the list because he gives the units unstable. The biggest problem I've had with ogres is they hit, they don't do anything, lose combat, they run away, then they get run down, right?
And they're fearless too. Which is nice.
Yeah. So with Godspeaker, they're fearless and unstable. So you just have this 12 block of ogres with 2 characters in it that can't run away.
Yeah,
the ogres
are for sure. Goodness.
Yeah. The ogres themselves are parry, strength 4, AP1 because they're ogres. Iron fists give them an extra attack. They're not actual paired weapons, so they don't get the extra offense, ignore parry, but it's still an extra attack. It's like halfway between a shield and paired weapons. And then they have sheltering standard because, of course, they have sheltering standard. 5 saber-toothed tigers. These are here is more of a get in the way kind of thing. Chaff. Then you have 2 units of scrapplings. They are backfield scoring units. So to leave sitting on a objective, so you don't feel bad leaving your entire ogre block sitting on an objective to score points. There's literally as cheap as possible. You don't pay anything for throwing weapons, and it's like 5 points for standard bearer. It's as cheap as I can make them. 3 Tusker Cav, another scoring unit with Stalker standard, so they don't again trip over a tree. And then the 2 units of 8 Scrappling Trappers. This is more chaff, but they're also really cheeky because they, if you enter into a terrain piece they're into or charge them while they're in terrain or whatever, they do a bunch of hits on you. So it's more things to get in the way and be annoying.
It's 2d6 strength 5.
Yeah, it's not an it's not an insignificant number of hits. Like, it is a decent thing. So they're there to be in the way. And then you have another Rocker Rock because this is about big stompies, and a Frost Mammoth because you can't bring 3 Rocker Rocks. The Frost Mammoth is actually really useful though because it's like a 12-inch aura of -3 agility or something like that. So it helps
the tribesmen big time.
Yeah, so it's designed to hang out with the tribesmen and just slow anything down that want to actually fight the tribesmen. Again, no magic. I mean, technically the Frost Mammoth has a bound spell, but guess what's never getting cast?
So 3 for 3. No
Yeah,
magic.
3 for 3, no magic.
And basically no shooting.
I am kind of on the no magic train, so if I wrote the list, it's probably going to have as little magic as possible at the moment. I don't think Mark agrees with me, if I remember correctly. We'll see what Mark's list looks like in a second. But yeah, that's that. Thoughts?
Chris, you want to go first?
Yeah, I like the 2 rocker rocks. I think that's great. I like the God Speaker. That's a cool. That's a very cool, like new 3.0 rule into ogres. But I do agree. I wish they were bruisers, not tribesmen. I felt like, I mean, I know the rocker rocks have their impact hits and their high AP, and same with the Tuskers, but I guess you don't have great weapons on them. You don't have anything else. So it's like, I kind of,
it was a fight for points in this list. Honestly, they could probably be bruisers and just have not bring Sabertooths or something if I really wanted to.
Yeah.
Or just have lots of them.
They're tribesmen mostly because A, I could bring a lot of them, and B, the models that I have made more sense for Iron Fist tribesmen.
Yeah, but considering what we've seen so far, I mean, we haven't seen a lot of like high strength range damage yet. So hey, those 3 big elephants might be pretty safe for now. We'll see.
Yeah, I did double check the book. You're right. Rotten Jaw says models and foot only. I don't know why New Recruit let me do that. I'll fix that when we're done here. Yeah. Good catch, though. Please keep me honest.
Yeah, no biggie. I like this list, Chris. I think you designed a good list for Mike. Couple of reasons why I like it. So one is that having like a Death Star like this, especially for someone that's new to the game, I think makes it a bit easier. Where it's like, okay, like be careful with this one unit, protect it.
Yeah.
Or like direct the ship in one way. He doesn't have too much he has to like try to account for and think of. So I think that makes the game a little bit easier. I agree, definitely. I would prefer bruisers, but tribesmen are great too. I just prefer bruisers also if you're going to take Liger's tongue, because you lower the offensive skill.
Yeah, it's kind of counter synergy with the parry.
Right.
I think you're right in that scenario. Yeah, I did straight up. I think you're right in that scenario. I'm not obviously not going to change it now, but it would be. Bruisers they're the same points cost for the initial unit, but they're 25 points more model than the tribesmen are. So it goes back and forth.
They're pricey, and the tribesmen are more defensive.
Yes.
They parry, and then because you have the extra bodies, it makes the unstable thing more of an issue.
Yes.
So again, like I'm splitting hairs a little bit, but I like the tribesmen too. Like it's definitely a Death Star. But what I like about this list too is that you have threats outside the Death Star. Like you can't just look at this list and be like, all right, well, if I avoid the Tribe Star, I'm going to be fine. You have 2 Rocker Rocks like screaming down each flank probably. And then you have Tusker Cav as well. And you have a Frost Mammoth, which is still a monster. Like you got seriously. And then you have a lot of chaff, and the chaff is like pretty dirty. Like saber-toothed tigers are no joke.
They're like 2-3 attacks a piece at strength 4 AP1. Like they're not
2 wounds a model, correct?
Yeah.
They're a nice dart. And then the trappers, are dirt cheap, but they like they can like really threaten you to be like, you really want to charge me in a terrain feature, right? And take those free 2d6 strength 5 hits. So and I think the Rocker Rocks got better because Frenzy doesn't work the way that it used to, right? Like, where you have to charge and stuff. So you're not like worried about getting Frenzy baited. So
now the biggest bait with this one, and I did try to turn off a lot of the gotchas because it's a list for a new player, but this is also just how I was building my ogres. I tried to turn off a lot of the gotchas. The Death Star has Stalker Standard, so walk it through whatever, I don't care. Yeah. The Tusker Calf has Stalker Standard. Walk it through whatever, I don't care. The Mammoth Hunter has Strider. Walk it through whatever, I don't care. Like I tried to ignore a lot of the gotchas here. But one thing that I have, because I played this or slight variation of this versus Mike with my vampires last weekend, and he 20-0'd me in like our first game. So he did pretty good with it. But I have seen, I've seen a lot of misuse out of the big monsters because you can't just run them in on their own and expect them to do something unless it's a very small unit they're hitting. They need to be either two of them into something or it's supporting the Death Star or whatever. Like, you can scream it down the flanks, but you're gonna lose it because it's only gonna do really things on the first turn it hits, and then after that it's just gonna lose combat, run away, and get run down. Like, that's just what happens to them in my experience.
Yeah, that's fair. They gotta like pick and choose their targets, but they're mobile and they hit really hard. But you're right, like with all the between all the Strider and then the trappers, I just now imagine this list is they're like an ogre landscaping company. That's the theme of the list. Like we don't care about terrain. Like, we own this terrain. Like, we know what to do. Like,
well, and the trappers have Vanguard and Scout, so like it doesn't matter how you want to deploy them. You can start them in the piece of terrain that you want them to be in the way. Like, they're really useful.
Well, going into Mark's list, I think they're gonna. Well, we can get into that in a moment, but I think they'll come into great effect. Why isn't it showing? Go. There it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Just scrolling, people. Just gotta scroll. All right, so
I could go over Mark's list,
please,
just because I played it recently. So, so Mark has a Duke who's on a horse. That weapon works the way they used to, where if it hits you, he can discard one hit and it turns off your magic item. It like breaks your magic weapon, I should say.
For the rest of the game?
Correct. Yeah. And then Honor gives him extra charge range and an extra 2 attacks if he charges the front. So he basically just goes in, he's going to break your like uber character's weapon and then hopefully like win in the grind. He has magic. Now, it's not a ton of magic, but he's got a little bit of magic. So he has the first magic user so far. I'm an adept on shamanism, the heirloom. And then he's got a folk hero BSB who does some extra damage when charging like rank and flank units where there's like a lot of files. And then he has cleric, so he helps to like raise a model back each turn from the unit that he's in. He's got a standard unit of knights. He's got 2 units of hedge knights. The hedge knights are pretty nasty. They're kind of like, they can be chaff, but they're also like pretty hard hitting on the charge. And then the 2 knights of the court are his hammer units. They're not great in the grind, but they hit very hard. So they gain +1 agility, an extra +1 agility on the charge. They gain an extra attack on the charge. So they have 2 attacks each. And then their charge 9 when they go to charge. So they have a long threat range. And the one unit has the distortion emblem, so they could pop that if you have a lot of shooting. One turn they get -2 to shoot at them. He has some yeoman chaff, and then he has his anvils, which are the Knights Penitent. I'm just telling people right now, do not underestimate these Knights Penitent.
No, do not.
They're very difficult to move. They have a 2-up armor save. So they used to have a 3-up. They have a 2-up armor save now. So same save as the other knights, but they're unstable and they're stubborn, I believe. And they have great weapons. So they don't have a lot of attacks, but they still hit pretty hard, and the horses are strength 5. So the whole thing of this list is he has his chaff units like running out front. He has the Knights Penitent that is going to like absorb charges, and then he's going to like flank you.
And I'm assuming the cleric is going in one of the Knights Penitent units. The folk hero cleric.
He didn't put it in one of those units when he played me. I think he put him in one of the Knights of the Court units.
Oh, well, that makes sense too.
Yeah. So he may bounce it around. I don't think he'll put him in the same unit every time. But yeah, I think the Knights Penitent are there purely just to absorb, so he can countercharge with the Knights of the Court or the Knights of the Realm. So it's a very fast list. No shooting. He has a little bit of magic just to be able to throw some buffs up and stuff, and like get those blessing tokens, which are really important for the army. But otherwise relatively straightforward. It's a tough list.
Yeah, I think something to watch out for is that Predator's Instinct spell, because won't that just like increase the charge range on like in an aura effect of those knights anyway?
Currently, yes, it is still an aura.
Yeah.
But so that spell's kind of weird because it requires being a little bit prescient, because the magic phase is after the charge phase, so you have to be planning for your charges next turn with it. It's not as straightforward as you want it to be, where you just like cast charge. Like it's next turn that you have to be concerned about.
Yeah, this will be a fun game, and like you said, Chris, like Mark will definitely make it fun for Mike, and he'll teach him the game, but he'll probably
win, but
probably run over the ogres. I also feel
if you want to refresh, by the way, I fixed Mike's list. I just made it easy. I swapped out the Khan's weapon and gave him something so that I had to spend the points somehow. So I just went, here, have a different weapon, and then gave him a potion because it worked out points wise.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Troll tonic. Okay.
Yeah, I gave him Kadai's Legacy Troll Tonic and removed.
Oh, nice. And you still kept it at 4,000 points.
Yeah, like I said, I just swap. All right, we're good. I fixed it.
There's also a nice little trend going where I think each list now that we've reviewed has been exactly 4,000 points.
Gotta love it. Clean.
Yeah, I agree, Ryan, with your thought there, that I think, Mark's going to try and teach him, but at the same time, I think, yeah, he's going to ultimately just shove knights down the ogre's throat.
Yeah, and
unless they trip over some dangerous trains, I don't see any stalker standards in here.
Yeah, he brought a bunch of horses, and Predator's Instinct is no longer an aura in the new rules, James, but we're still using the old book where it is.
I think too, KOE is a tough matchup for ogres typically. Mm-hmm. Now, I think Mike has a better shot because he has the giant unit of tribesmen with like unstable, so he's not going to break. And if he's able to get the charges off with the Rocks, they're very good.
Yeah, they'll delete knights if he can actually get the charges off with the Rocks.
But it's going to come down to, because they have equal units of chaff.
Yeah.
So it's going to come down to positioning, and just Mark has even more movement than Mike does, and just with the game, tabletop experience, I think Mark will set up the charges he needs to.
Oh, I'm sure these are both armies that kind of want to do the same thing: set up a charge and just run down your enemy's throat. And Mark is not only playing the faster version of that army, but also just has more experience. I expect Mark to win this one. But I just wanted to make sure Mike had a fun game, and I thought Mark could do that for him. So this is the matchup I created.
Yeah. Mike, right. I try to get Mark a little drunk. That would be...
That's the key. All right, let's do match 3. So we got one of our club mates from Titans of Ninth, Aaron Mills, versus Lynn Fermento from New Jersey, I believe. Lincoln, of course, correct me if I'm mistaken. So let's see. Aaron's list. Ryan, why don't I give that one to you, because you also did a fair amount of
if I can chime in before you get started, Ryan. Mm-hmm. Infernal Dwarves, they're looking pretty good. We got 3 Infernal Dwarves in this tournament. They're looking pretty good right now.
I know. I don't know what's wrong with me, because I thought the same thing. I was like, ID looks really good in 3.0, and then I was like, well, I'll play a different army. But so I don't know what that's about. Yeah, and you guys could help me out too, because I'll be honest, I'm not as familiar with the ID in this version, but
my other buddy that is joining, who's new, is playing Infernal Dwarves, so I've been looking at the book a lot, so I'll help you out if there's something you don't know what it does.
Thank you. Yeah, so let's go over this fire dwarf list here. So he has an overlord. He has the shield, which basically means he can use a two-handed weapon, but he still gets parry.
Yeah,
so that's kind of nifty. And then the overlord still works where he can take two magic weapons. So he's got paired weapons, Flame of the East, which I forget what that does now.
Flame of the East is flaming attacks and volcanic embrace D6 +1.
Right, and volcanic embrace works differently. So it's D6 +1, and it's strength 3,
AP3, unless they are metal armor, in which case it's strength 4, AP4.
Yeah, which is still brutal. I mean, that's really good, especially you get D6 +1 of those. That's nice.
Yep. And they're grind, so you can still do your normal attacks and
they're flaming, right?
Yep.
So you get your rerolls to wound with them too. So
if you got the incendiary tokens up, yeah, it's a solid weapon.
Which his list can easily do is get those incendiary tokens out.
Yeah, that's terrifying. And then he's got an infernal weapon, which makes him +1 strength and AP. So he's up to strength 5. But then Onyx Core makes his strength set to 6.
Yep.
So he's strength 6, AP2.
Multiple wounds D3 against weakness flaming, so flammable.
So I mean, if you have a character with good armor, he's going to slice and dice you with paired weapons, Flame of the East. If you're like a monster, he's going to swing at you with Onyx Core.
Well, so here's the meme about paired weapons, Flame of the East. He doesn't even have to use the paired weapons. It gives him grind attacks. Couldn't he just use Infernal Weapon and still use his grind attacks?
He has to use the weapon that it's enchanted.
He does actually have to. All right, cool. Good to know.
Yeah. Goes to guard talisman shielding. So he went a little bit cheaper on the protection. So he's got a 1-up save against non-magical, a 3-up against, if it's magical attacks, and a 5-up Aegis. But he's res 5, and he's got parry. So I think he's banking on 1-2 rounds max. He's going to kill most things. That's a scary character. That really is. He has the Lamasu Scholar, which I think is a cool model. He's got an extra channel inherently with Talisman of the Void, and then he does the thing where the opponent chooses to either give him another channel or to give him an extra spell. So he's a reliable caster. So another magic user we have here. Then he's got a BSB with Warding of Unity means you have to reroll successful to wound rolls against him in close combat, which is nice. And he has Ring of Desiccation, which basically makes any units in contact with him
flammable, yeah,
which is terrific synergy wise. Now, what's the banner of Shamut again? I forget.
+1 offense and +1 combat score.
Okay, so that's really nice too. So depending on what unit they go in, then it's got
a static 3 just from banners.
Yeah. And then he's got the best, I think, core unit in the game right now, which is Infernal Warriors. Great weapon. Blunderbuss is so good.
And he's got a naphtha thrower down there on the gunnery team, so of course that's probably going right in that unit.
And I think Banner of Twice Brand, is that the one where it makes them fire an extra rank?
Yes.
And they get a free reform if they get charged in the front. So he can go wide with them, do his shooting, and they get stand and shoot. Everybody know that. Blunderbusses get stand and shoot.
Yes, they do.
After, if you have anything left, if whatever unit gets in, he then can reform into ranks, if he wants to.
So we were actually talking about this earlier. The way stand and shoot is worded, and this is the way it's written, so this is the way we're going to do it, that we should probably mention this to somebody. If you declare a charge with a unit, and they make it in, because you do stand and shoot once they touch you, right? You declare a charge with a unit, and they die on the charge, and then another unit charges, that one can also be shot.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that Aaron might actually get the chance to do that.
It requires it to be a double charge in the front of the, or a triple or whatever, in the front of the unit, and have the first unit die on the way in completely. Because if the first unit makes it, you're now engaged. You can't stand and shoot anymore. But if the first unit dies entirely, you can stand and shoot the next unit. Rules is written.
That's
which
awesome.
is weird, but we looked through that earlier.
Well, Aaron, I can't wait to hear what poor bastard you do that to. Jeez. He's got a nice Citadel Guard unit with spears. He's got some vassals with spears, sheltering standard, of course. He has even his enforcers, even his cavalry have blunderbusses. Immortals with spears, and so the immortals are still like pretty scary for their points, and they have bodyguard. And then interesting, he took bigger units of vassal cavalry. They're actually not bad in close combat, and
they have lances. Like, not even light lances. They have lances.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. They're strength 5, AP 2 on the charge. Their master's banner gives them reroll charges and battle focus, I believe.
Yep.
And then, as Chris mentioned, he's got 2 flamethrower gunnery teams, and then he's got a rocket battery gunnery team. So it's shorter range, but this whole list is moving forward anyway. So it's nice. Like, they're moving forward, but they're going to shoot you as they move forward. And it's tough as nails, and he's got the cavalry to kind of like protect the flanks. A really solid list, Aaron. I like it.
Yeah, this is quite impressive.
One thing to note is that the gunnery team rocket battery still maintains the artillery keyword, so it still gets all the benefits of shooting. The plus to hit, all the artillery bonuses of shooting big things, either height 5 or big units.
Wow. I hope I don't have to play him.
Yeah. Okay, so now we got Lynn's list, Highborn Elves. So he brought magic. And look, we're still on our theme for both lists having 4,000 points exactly.
Woohoo!
So he's got he's got, I think, just one of the best kind of single model flying characters in the game at the moment. It's just the Griffin guy who can, although now I noticed they made it a scroll. So it's now, so I guess that means he can turn off like a magic item once versus like each time.
Scroll the Pearl Throne. Hold on, I got to get that book.
So yeah, this guy has like what, a 3-up, 4-up save. He's on a Griffin, so the Griffin's pretty nasty in combat as well. The guy has the Nova Flare, which I believe does the same thing as last version thereabouts. He's just a really solid character. He's got the Adept with the 3 Cosmo spells. I really like Truth and Time. That's a fun one. And then just another missile in there. And so his list is channeling, it looks like 1, 2, the dragon gives him 3, and then I think you just automatically channel a dice in your magic phase just as part of the core.
If you're the active, you get a free one.
Yep. So he channels 4. So there's a bit more investment in magic here. All of his core is shooting. It's so that's, and the Sea Guard, they're great.
Sea Guard have always been good. They're just expensive because they can do everything. They're like decent spearmen. They're good archers. One thing I want to point out, and I'm aware this isn't like everywhere on his list, but I think it's funny that he has Dragon Forged armor, which is resistance flaming attacks into the Infernal Dwarves here.
Yeah, that guy's gonna give Aaron some problems for sure. Unless he just says, you know what, I'm still gonna just shoot you with blunderbusses.
I mean, weirdly enough, his blunderbusses are not flaming at the moment because he does not have that standard in there. He has the shoot next to ranks, and assuming he puts his battle standard bearer in that unit, has Banner of Shamut. So like he doesn't have flaming on the blunderbusses by default.
So we got 10 Knights of Rhyma. I think Knights of Rhyma now are really good with the bonus for lances. Now you get that extra agility on the charge as well.
And the extra attacks too, right?
Mm-hmm.
The next rank. And they're Dragon Forged also.
And the War Banner of Rhyma gives them an extra charge range and devastating charge for an extra strength. So
they hit like, big old bus. And then he's got a nice little anvil of, not little, 24 Flame Horns is not little. That's pretty hefty there, because I think they still kind of function the same way now with the boost to like all the stats to elves. They're just to compensate for the lack of.
I mean, they're just offense, defense 6, 5 up save, 4 pages.
Yeah, I still think that's pretty great. And then you have the hereditary in there to to negate wounds coming in. They're still, I think, fantastic. You got an obligatory initiate, with +1 to hit and a pyroclastic flow. And then you got a nice old Frost Phoenix. So he's got 3 flyers in the list. It's very fast. And he's got some nice combat units for his infantry with the Sea Guard and the Flame Warns. They're not the killiest, but they still will get the business done.
I think Aaron could have a bit of a field day with the 2 units of Blunderbuss and the Rocket Battery if he plays this right. I think he can just start shooting birds out of the sky.
Well, I don't know. I think
the Rocket Battery is a lot of work to do then.
It does. Yeah. I'm actually going to give it to, because I do think with Ice and Fire, I mean, and Truth of Time to make those let's see. I don't know how Truth and Time. I think the Wheel of Woe is the other one, right? Where you have to re-roll everything but 6s.
Depending on what that's a weird. It's a weird lore. Also, James, yes, we're playing. So I put up the poll and we didn't get enough votes because I wanted at least half the people to say yes, I want to use the new rolls. I didn't get that, so we're using the old ones still.
Oh, okay. So I do think I'm gonna give it to Lynn. I know Aaron. I feel like it's some bad juju going against my own clubmate, but I know Lynn is quite a good player, and is very experienced with the Highborn Elves. And this is a very, very fast list, and there's something that Chaos Dwarves do not like, or excuse me, Infernal Dwarves do not like. It is speed.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this could go either way because while I know, the whole Elven tomfoolery stuff, I feel like with the 2 naphtha throwers, the Rocket Battery, and all the blunderbusses, if played properly, I think Aaron has a chance for sure here. So I'm going to stay true to my teammate and give it to Aaron.
I would agree that Aaron definitely has a chance, but I think he's got to play very carefully.
Yes.
And
if he gets bored and shoves, he loses.
Yeah, and I think for that reason, I'm going to give the nod to Lynn. Lynn's shooting outranges Aaron's. His shooting is very scary. Aaron's, but it's all short range. So
it is. He needs to be in your face for it.
Lynn can sit back and shoot him, pepper him for the first couple turns, and then Lynn's stuff is faster. So as soon as Aaron starts to get into range, Lynn can start charging things that he knows he can win at. And Lynn, even though there's a lot of counters to elves again in Aaron's list, Lynn also has a lot of dragon forged armor. So as long as Lynn is careful around the 1 Rocket Battery, I think Lynn has a bit of an advantage here. But yeah, Aaron definitely has the tools. He's just got to be more careful on his side of the board.
All right, there you have it. Okay. Good luck, gentlemen. Let's do. It's our first 3996.
Yeah, you can blame Marty.
So we got Brian, another Green Dragons crew, and then Marty. So I have not met Marty. Is he also new?
Yes, Marty is my other one of my other friends he's an old fantasy player. He played 4th, 5th, 6th. He played old fantasy, but he hasn't gotten back in. He's been meaning to for a while. I finally talked him into getting some stuff together, so I printed some stuff for him, and we've got it'll be a bit patchwork, but we got him an Infernal Dwarves list here.
Nice.
So we'll see how this goes for him. And then this is another one where I was like, hey, Brian, I have a newer player. Can I throw him against you round 1? Because I think you'd be a good opponent for him. Also, and this was a little personal thing, when we used to play fantasy back in the day, I played this, and I've given Marty PTSD from Madgits, so I just wanted to do it again.
Wow.
What a pal. What a pal.
Sorry, Marty.
He'll have a fun game though.
No, he will.
Yeah. So I actually had the pleasure of playing Brian about a weekend or two ago, and played like a version of this list. I know, Ryan, you are the Orcs and Goblins person.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind going through it. And definitely share your thoughts because you played against it, kind of what that was like. But it, yeah, Brian wanted to do an all goblin list. He wanted to do like a cave goblin themed list.
Man after my own heart. This is exactly how I'd play this army.
Yeah, Brian. I mean, Marty is a new player. You're gonna have a great time. Brian's an awesome guy to play. Super fun. Brian is any hobbyist nightmare because any tournament he's at, he's gonna win the painting award. Like,
I should just give it to him at the beginning of the day, just so I don't have to worry about it.
You basically should. Yeah, I mean, Brian always brings it when it comes to his themed painted armies. But yeah, this is going to be a fun list. So he has the general, and the cool thing about the general is that he gets this Goblin Gardens rule. So you pick one terrain feature, and all the terrain features of that type on the board. So if he picks fields, it's all fields. If he picks water, it's all water. All of those terrain features, goblins gain Strider with, and all of the enemy units like take DTs in. So that's a pretty neat rule to pick the garden that way. And his general is actually like somewhat nasty. He's not going to be like this uber close combat character, but he can beat up like rank and file no problem. Between the pet monster, the lance, and the attack nasher, he has 10 attacks with strength 5 to strength 6. So it's a lot of attacks, and he gets a breath weapon, which is funny. Yeah, and then he has a little bit of magic. He's got some witchcraft in there. As Chris mentioned, he's going happy with the mad gets. I'm going to talk about a trick in a second. I wonder if he pulled this on you, Chris. I'll circle back to that.
I know what it is. I'm curious.
Yeah, big unit of spear goblins, of poison, sheltering standard, giant unit of bowmen. Goodness gracious. He's got like the cav version of the Reaver, so they're not the light troops. Like they actually score. He's got a monster, which is new from the last time I saw him building this, a Scarred Carapace. Now, is the Scarred Carapace the 4-up armor save? Is that what
I believe it is, but I'll double check.
Then he's got a giant with a club. Nice. The Neophytes are the guys that ambush, and they're also scoring, and they're throwing weapons, and they're pretty good in combat. They have poison spears as well.
Yeah, those spears will catch you off guard if you're not paying attention.
And they have 2 attacks each. Like they're no joke in combat. They're pretty scary. He has the token unit of veteran orcs. He has 2 Git launchers, which can also put mad gits in front of you. So if you didn't
man after my own heart.
and wrecking teams are terrific. I've always loved wrecking teams because they're always useful. Like even if your opponent kills them with shooting or magic, that means that they're wasting magic and shooting
on a 100-point model. Like it's.
And if they don't, then they're gonna just destroy something. So I've always loved wrecking teams. The trick to be careful for in this list is he can release those gits like the first turn. So but he didn't do it.
But he can. So it comes down to the Neophytes. I don't think he's going to. I know he's fully aware of this trick because we talked about it.
He can scout and then release them.
Yeah. So if he were to upgrade them to creepers, which he didn't do, like I said, he's aware of the trick. He chose not to do it. But if you upgrade them to creepers, they get scout. So you can scout and then either move, if say you get first turn as the goblin player, you can move forward and then launch them at the beginning of your opponent's turn from like 4 inches away. And quite frankly, you put them out 3 inches, so like they can't miss at that point. Or if your opponent gets first turn, you just launch them from the 12 inches away that the scouts can do and let them deal with them first turn. Like either way, it's really good. But he specifically chose not to do it.
Yeah, because he threw me off because I played a version of this list. It was a little while ago, and it was different, and he had that unit in there. So that's why I confused myself. So I thought that's what he was going to do. I'm surprised he didn't take those guys. But okay.
You know, we talked about it because I was all in for it because I think it's silly, but no, he didn't want to do it.
Okay.
Now, here's a question, though. Say if you did do that, right? Could you release all 6 of them from one unit?
No, you'd have to have 2 units to do all 6 of them in one turn.
Okay. Yeah, it's only 3 per unit. So fun list. It's definitely got tremendous upside. Like, there's a lot of bodies in this list. There's a lot of damage that he can do. The only downside to the list is he doesn't have like that close combat character that you got to be scary of. He's going to be relying heavily on like the giant with the club, and just death by 1,000 cuts to like kill a lot of things.
Now he does have 20 veteran orcs with paired weapons and Ed Basher, so like it's not an inconsequential combat block, but it's not some massive punch. I mean, I guess he does, like you said, the giant, the guardian behemoth.
Yeah, so he's got some strength 6 and 7 in there, and he's got 5 scoring units, I'm counting. So good amount of scoring. But Chris, I'm curious what your thoughts are, especially because you played against it, what that was like.
Well, it was certainly was a challenge to try and figure out how to deal with all the Madgets and the wrecking teams, and then take all of that shooting. So when I played against it, I had 2 random movement spells because I was still testing out magic, and so I was like trying to make the wrecking teams go only 2d6 instead of or like put random movement on the giant or the bows or his big bow unit, for example. So that was sort of my trick, but ultimately I just said, I'm just going to have to eat it in some of these situations. I tried to get into some of the goblin units quickly, like with overruns, and unfortunately I did not, and Brian punished me for it.
James is a good point, Chris. Come on, you got to plug the channel. This battle's on your channel.
It is, indeed it is. It is. You can watch this battle full report on Gaming in the Keats. There's my shameless plug. So now here's I'm noticing this.
Yeah, so new recruit's been yelling. So when you have, and this was actually kind of the joke, new recruit's been yelling the second you put any orc units into a list with Goblin Darmu, but you're allowed to have less than 400 points of orcs, which he does. So I manually verified this list because it is in fact correct, because he has less than 400 points of orcs, but new recruit doesn't like any orcs. It is a goblin purist.
Well, that's a bug.
So it is in fact a correct list. He has less than 400 points of orcs.
It's okay, Chris. You could say that Brian sold out by taking a unit of orcs. It's fine.
I told him I was going to reject it because it wasn't pure. New recruit agreed with me.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing that I noticed is Brian he put in a guardian behemoth instead of using trolls. I guess the trolls were just not
trolls. They just don't do enough.
So I guess Brian was just having some bad luck with trolls. They kind of got run over by my Thunder Pack, and he didn't, but the troll toll just didn't really pay off for him. No pun intended. But
I like trolls, but the guardian behemoth is fast at least.
Mm-hmm. But now, I guess we do have to keep in mind that the giant and the behemoth are no longer like troops.
Yeah.
So they're not as like versatile with like the whole single model shenanigans there. But they're still, I agree with. Yeah, they're still.
I get where he's going with the giant and the guardian behemoth. I still think I'd rather just see both of those as blocks of Nashers, though. Personally.
You know that I'm pretty biased with Nashers.
I know your opinion of Nashers.
Yeah.
But no, overall, it's a fun list. I love it. It's bringing me back to the old days of fantasy, to the point where I'm really interested to see how this list does, because I'm really tempted to pivot back to my goblins, because this list is about where I want to live in this hobby. I had so much fun playing this back in the day. I just haven't been a fan of how the Orc and Goblin book has been up until now. But I'm really curious to see how this works.
Well, I want to see Brian utilize the Git launchers and put those more fanatics out in front of units. I think that will be really fun.
So they've actually changed Git launchers. They don't. It used to be if you miss by a certain degree, you can put it. Now it's a 6 to hit. So instead of hitting the unit on a 6 to hit, you just drop a fanatic.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, let's go into Infernal Dwarves.
I helped write this list, so if you want, I can kind of take the lead on this one.
Yeah.
Again, I think we're seeing a theme here. The Lamassu Scholar appears to be very good right now. I think everybody's taking it. So we have a Lamassu Scholar starting off, Talisman of the Void, Living Steel, Mist of Invisibility, Hand of Glory. Pretty solid spell list if you're going that direction. I'm still kind of questioning Mist of Invisibility personally. It's kind of tricky to use, but there it is.
I was going to say, I think it's great with a shooting unit. This is James and I were talking about that. Like just being able to pop up like a big unit of blunderbusses 12 inches away.
Yeah, it's. I can see its utility. I just think it's going to be tricky to use it right. The Vessel Conjurer with Pyromancy and the Mimic Cloak, so he's hanging out behind the lines. We have a... I used magic. This is because Marty wanted to use magic. I didn't tell him to. This is just what he wanted to do.
You did it reluctantly.
Yeah, he said he wanted to use magic, so we gave him magic. The Witch Hunt is on. All right. We got a Vizier General. We didn't want to invest entirely in an Overlord because we didn't want to put him on a bull, and we were kind of debating the usefulness of a foot Overlord as far as how much effect he's going to have, because quite frankly, he's a dwarf. He's on foot. You can kind of avoid him if you really need to. Without the bull, he's got limited mobility, so we decided, all right, we'll just do a Vizier General just to get the General in there. So he's kind of got a similar thing going on here. Warding of Unity, Flame of the East, Ring of Desiccation, Light People on Fire, use the Strength 4, AP 4 grind attacks against him. And then we have a Battle Standard Bearer, Flaming Standard Bundle Bus, Blunderbuss, Infernal Weapons, going to go in the Blunderbuss unit, which has Banner of the Twice Branded for shooting in the extra rank, and they're also getting an Aptha Thrower. It's the standard unit, right? Now, he really liked Vassal Levies, so we have a big old block of Vassal Levy Spears with their Master's Banner. So it's a whole bunch of spear attacks with Fury. Could be interesting, especially into potentially something like Mark, where T3, AP3 kind of thing. Shackled Slaves is kind of more just a get in the way unit. It's not quite chaff because it really doesn't want to march because it kills itself when it marches, but it is still just an extra body that can get in the way. And they're actually kind of fast even without marching. I was surprised. I think they're like move 6 even without marching. Then you have the 6-man block of Incarnates. He was really liking these in our testing. Again, with the whole Volcanic Embrace thing, Strength 3, AP 3, it's really good for chewing through armor, better than I thought it would be. So we were looking through that. Block of Immortals. This is, I believe, where the General's going. It's kind of just a bunker unit for the General, but it's also, an angry block of Immortals and Spears. They do pretty good things. It's a pretty good combat unit. Kadeem Chariot. It's a flanker. It does flanking things. Again, we were leaning heavy into the fire aesthetic here, especially with the Volcanic Embrace, because I really like that rule. So we were trying to pull a bunch of Kadeem in. Then we have 2 units of 5 Vassal Cav. These are to help spread the flammable. The gunnery team with an Aptha Thrower I mentioned earlier, and then a Vassal Slingshot, mostly because we had extra points and it could potentially throw out more flammable. It's also kind of amusing if it manages to hit something, because direct hit on bolt throwers, because it doubles the strength in AP, so it's like strength 6, AP 20 or something like that. It's the bolt thrower. It's just a silly number for no reason. Yeah, overall, the list kind of built around a couple blocks of warriors and some chaff with a block of Incarnates. It's been pretty solid in our testing. he has run into range problems with the blunderbuss a couple times. Them being 12 inches and him being dwarves, even with a march, is still kind of a short range. The same thing you were talking about with Lynn versus Aaron, where he might just be outranged in a lot of scenarios. Marty might run into the same problem here, where between the two units of the two Git launchers, the big unit of archers, and then just all of the wrecking teams and fanatics and stuff, he might have a rough time. But I think it'll be a fun game.
It will be a fun game. But yeah, I feel for Marty. I think he's a bit of a disadvantage here because his army's pretty compact. By the time he gets into range, as Brian's peppering him, to your point, he's got to then shoot wrecking teams.
Yeah.
Or shoot some other stuff before he gets into the meat and potatoes of Brian's list. And I think sadly, because as Marty's moving up, because he has to play aggressively, especially round one, Brian's going to surround him pretty easily.
Yeah.
Because he's got the ambushing neophytes, he's got the giant, he's got the spider, he has the cavalry. Like, I don't think Marty's going to be able to keep that all in front of him, and then I think that's when it's going to be a problem.
This very much is a learning weekend for Marty because he knows the old editions very well. Obviously doesn't know this edition. So he's not only going to be trying to learn the edition, but also what some of his pieces do. And I think seeing a variety of lists will help him with that. This is a very unique list to see, in my opinion. So it will give him some, limit testing for what he's going to be looking at, because I'm sure he's going to be rebuilding his list after this, what he's going to be looking at as far as actually what he wants to run moving forward after this.
Sure. And one quick thing, Brian had a question for us. He said, I don't think neophytes scored due to light troops.
Neophytes only get light troops if you buy creepers. You didn't buy creepers, so they're a scoring unit.
Yeah, that's one of their cool things is they ambush and they get scoring. So you're good, Brian. Good luck, Marty. You're definitely gonna have an awesome time. You're gonna have a fun game.
Playing against a very beautiful army.
Yes.
Best of luck. I'm gonna give it to Brian on this one myself.
I think Brian's got this one. The only benefit that I might give Marty is that he has some experience playing against these shenanigans, because I did this too. I subjected him to this many a times in the past, albeit he was playing different armies then, but still.
Just re-traumatizing the
I really am. I couldn't resist. Plus, Brian is a wonderful opponent. I thought it would be a good teaching match for Marty to help him get into the flow of things. But I really just couldn't resist. As soon as I saw what Brian was running, I'm like, yes.
All right. Well, best of luck. Here we go. Match 5. We got Stottle versus Chris Flanagan.
All right. Yeah, I'll go through my list. I kept the 4,000 point trend going. I did take Magic though in this list. So
traitor.
I know.
Go through your list. I'm gonna run to the bathroom real fast. I'll be right back.
Yeah. I basically the two things that my list really wants to do is have a lot of shooting and have answers against shooting to protect Dread Elves, because that's always been their weakness. My Dread Prince, I think, is a pretty solid combat character. With paired weapons, he's offensive skill 9, and he breaks parry, so he should hit most things on 2s or 3s. With Shield Breaker, so he's AP 10, and he always has +1 to wound at strength 4. And then he's got defensive skill 8, 2-up armor save, 4-up fortitude, and he has a potion of healing, so he effectively has like 4 health points. So again, like pretty durable, pretty scary close combat character, especially in combination with the spells that I have. And then I have a Temple Exarch that's a wizard adept, a divination. The spear that he has gives him battle focus, lethal strike, and multi-wounds 2. So he only has 3 attacks, but every once in a while, if he rolls a 6, it's pretty nice. And then the Ring of the Obsidian Thrones gives his unit a minimized tests to their courage tests and to their break tests. So he's going to be part of like the Anvil unit. And I took a decent sized unit of spears, Banner Discipline. I like the Temple Militants, so I took a big unit of them. The big difference for them is that they have afflict -2 defensive skill, and they're paired weapons, so they're offensive skill 6. So they're basically like offensive skill 8 with the afflict ability. So they hit really easily with a lot of attacks. I have the auxiliaries for some shooting. I did take the acolytes with magic, so they're the conclave, and they have the distortion emblem for the anti-shooting. Some obsidian guard. I also took the altar of Nob, so most of the time it's going to go in the spears, but sometimes I put it in the militant unit. One of those 2 units is going to be stubborn with the minimized character, so they're going to be an anvil and hand out battle focus. And then I took 3 repeater batteries, and then I have what I call my Black Ops unit. It's 9 black cloaks. They scout and they vanguard, and they hit on 4s. Basically always, because they're quick to fire and they're accurate and they have poison attacks. And then the Miss Leviathan is really fun. So the Miss Leviathan, the first turn of the game, gives all units that are height 1 within 8 inches hard target. So it helps protect against shooting in the first turn. Fun fact, all the repeater batteries are height 1 also. So it does protect the repeater batteries too. And then he flies 714, and then his 8-inch bubble also applies to enemy units. So if he's within 8 inches of enemy units that shoot, they're also at -1 to shoot. So he's great anti-shooting, and he's got 9 wounds. So it's pretty tough to kill him.
Is that just on the first turn, or is that just what he has?
The protection for my units is just the first turn. But if he gets within 8 inches of enemy units...
That's anytime.
That's anytime.
Right,
yeah, so he's just like an annoying monster. He helps give me that first turn protection, which, thank goodness, with all these ID lists, like, I'm going to need it.
I promise, if we play, I will not shoot you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're taking vampires, that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's a gun?
Empty words, Chris. So, yeah, it's heavy shooting. The magic is pretty dirty too, because one of the spells gives me rerolls to hit, and then one of the spells is -1 resilience, so I can really focus fire on things, but I have enough combat options. So
yeah, it's oof. Yeah, I saw this list and I was like, oh god, I don't want to play that. I think
good.
I love that Black Ops unit. I really like what you also did here is you're effectively using the Obsidian Guard as like your BSB.
Yeah, they're the poor man's BSB.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, are they? They're 300 points.
Well, yeah. Like, why spend 300 and some points on a character versus like 12 health points? Yeah, just a unit that does that.
Well, that, and it's not in the character slot, so it's not eating up any of your character points.
Yeah, I really like your Dread
Not
Prince.
that you maxed your characters, but
I think like had I not taken the Dragon's Brew on my character, I 100% would have switched it to Potion of Healing. The Dragon's Brew is more of a tech piece, but I really like the Potion of Healing here on your Prince. Like,
so one time, 1 wound, right?
I'm sorry.
The Potion of Healing is 1 time, 1 wound, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And here's a fun fact. I'm still learning the rules of this version. I'm sure I'll get some things wrong, but when I was doing the list building, I thought that you could only take the magic items in your army book or what was listed as like the shared items.
Oh no, there's a whole common section too. Yeah.
I had no idea because I was looking through these lists. I'm like, what's this sheltering standard? Why does everybody get to take this except me? And I was like, and then I looked, I was like, oh, there was all these common items that I could have taken. I don't think it would have changed much, but I was just like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a little disappointed when I didn't see the sheltering standard on any of your like the core units, for example. But I'm curious to see how the 9 magic acolytes do. I really like the illusory paths in here, and Whispers of the Veil really helps with your shooting. Rerolls to hit helps with your shooting, as well as the combat, of course. Makes total sense of why you have a distortion emblem in the list.
Yeah, I was questioning that. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
My question with the distortion emblem is, does it affect the blunderbuss? Because don't blunderbusses like always at least hit on 5s?
No, they actually changed that. Blunderbusses don't have that rule anymore. They just have all of the rules that would otherwise make them not hit on 5s. So like they're quick to fire, march and shoot, like stand, like they don't take. But if you have a -1 to hit, they do still suffer it.
Gotcha. Okay, so then the Mist Leviathan certainly makes sense here as well. I mean, I think this is awesome.
The Black Cloaks unit is the scariest thing in the list. I'll just tell people that right now. That's the unit you gotta look out for.
And Black Ops guys.
Yeah.
To be honest, that's like kind of why I took a breath weapon on the Manticore. I was like, no, this is my only like real range damage.
Yeah.
James has a good point. When you're near the Leviathan, if you pop that banner, they literally can't shoot you because there's no hopeless shots. There's not 7s anymore, so it literally cannot target you with the blunderbusses for that turn.
Yes.
No, but if he's near an enemy unit, yes.
Yeah.
Makes sense. All right, let's do. Speaking of infernal dwarfs, here's your 3rd infernal dwarf list.
They're all running very similar things. Like, as much as I let Marty spearhead his own list creation, we did do some adjustments, but he got pretty close to what everybody else is running, honestly.
So the thing that makes me frustrated when I see this immediately is that you can take twice branded more than once.
You can. You can have
2
twice branded banners.
I'm also upset about that.
That you can take more than one twice. I'm sorry. You can have 3 twice branded banners. You can have 6 brands.
That's okay. Nice. Well, we've got, so we got the two blocks of Infernal Warriors with Great Weapons Blunderbuss. We got the Prophet of Nezabiknesh, Life Troops, Adept. So we got Flaming Swords, Dragon's Roar, Pyroclastic Flow, a Mimic Cloak. So he stands behind in the unit, which is pretty...
One thing to note is that Prophet is the one with Engineer. I don't know if that's going to come up, but he does technically have Engineer.
So he gives +1 to hit, right?
So Engineer is weird. I'll double check to make sure it's still this, but last time I checked, Engineer essentially let you point at a artillery unit and tell it to pretend whatever it's shooting at was one of the things it would get bonuses against. Like if it were height 5 or big. I'm pulling it up now. The hotfix 2.
I got it here, Chris. Once during each shooting phase, a non-shaken model with Engineer can select a unit within 6 inches. The chosen model gains accurate. And for the purpose of rolling to hit using the artillery rule, all targets are considered to be of height 5.
Yeah, so he gains accurate if he doesn't already have it. And everything, whatever he wants to shoot at, counts as height 5. So I don't know if he just took that one because it was like a cheap option, or if he actually, because it is a free option like that. If you want to take that one's free on foot. So I don't know if he just took that for a cheap option or if he plans on hanging out near one of the rocket batteries to be able to like point at it, which, being realistic, he could be in the same unit as one of the rocket batteries. So, because they're gunnery teams, not infernal artillery. So it's just a little tech piece. I don't know if he plans to do that, but it could be interesting.
Yeah, they would go in the unit of Infernal Warriors, right?
Yeah, so the gunnery teams go in the units, so they'd go in the unit of Infernal Warriors. So assuming he puts that Prophet in one of those units, he just keeps making the the rocket battery have the engineer bonus. Like it.
Those are going to be units.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's rough. Then we got 6 incarnates. That's a nice little meaty volcanic embrace unit. 2 units of vassal cav for not just chaff, I think, but also for the incendiary tokens. 2 flamethrowers, 2 rocket batteries, and a rock crusher.
I'm wondering why he did this, because normally, because of the blunderbusses, they put the gunnery teams on the naphtha throwers so they can go in the blunderbusses, right? Because naphtha throwers have march and shoot. It makes more sense to do that. But he's put the rocket batteries on the gunnery teams. So the rocket batteries are going in the units, and then the naphtha throwers are the big ones on the standalone things that are going to sit behind everything and shoot. It's just normally you see gunnery team naphtha thrower whenever you have a blunderbuss block.
Well, so what's this whole rock crusher thing? What's
it's the
about?
train, but it's got the one with the melee weapon on the front of it.
Did you print out the Thomas the Tank Engine evil train?
No, I didn't. I didn't ask for it, but I would have if you wanted it.
It had the extra grind attacks, I think.
Yeah. So if you take Rock Crusher, it sets your strength to 6 and AP to 3. So it's basically +1 strength and AP on the chassis. So your grind attacks and your no, you don't have any impact. Yeah, so your grind attacks become strength 6 AP 3 rather than the strength 5 AP 2.
Okay.
And then it also has devastating charge +1 strength and AP. So on the charge, it's strength 7 AP 4 with 3 grinds. It's not bad.
He's wounded on 2s anyway.
Yeah.
As far as our matchup is concerned, anyway.
Yeah.
wounded on 2s. Doesn't matter.
Well, so yeah, this is interesting. Yeah, the matchup, right?
I mean, so it's a very symmetrical list, right? He's got 2 units of Infernal Warriors that are both getting a rocket battery in them. He's got a unit of 6 Kadim Incarnate and an Infernal Engine, so he's got a thing for each flank. He's got 2 flamethrowers that are going to sit behind everything, because fun fact about the Infernal Dwarf artillery, it's height 3, so it can actually see over everything, unlike the normal dwarf artillery, which is all height 1 and can't see anything. So the only thing I would point out to be wary of is those naphtha throwers, because they're on the Infernal artillery. They get the high caliber rules, so they're going to be slowing you down if they hit you. So not that I have to tell you not to get your infantry shot by a flamethrower, but
I don't want them hit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So, Ryan, how do you feel about this matchup?
It's yeah. Well, first, just a comment on Chris's list, and Chris and we've been in a couple events together. He's a buddy of Ben Keller's. I agree with Chris. It's a very symmetrical list, which I think is good. Again, if he's just a player that's a little bit newer to the version, hasn't played as much as some of us have. It's I'll say a little vanilla in the sense there's no scary close combat characters. There's some other pieces missing, but I think it'd be a very efficient list. He's just focusing on target selection. So it's scary for me. My Dread Prince doesn't feel good with the 4 fortitude save. So he's got to be real careful.
Definitely more of a castle. It's probably not going to push you as much. Maybe a little bit with the blunderbuss, but with this 2 Infernal artillery, he's probably castling up and having you come to him.
He can basically pick one half of the board and kind of corner up and just slowly move forward and just keep that tight formation and then just shoot me. The magic and the shooting is all scary for me. The thing, and it's odd because the Infernal Engine would be scary for most people. That's actually the one piece I don't care about, because my whole army is +1 to wound. So I'm wounding on 5s. It doesn't matter. And I just have a ton of attacks. So I'm not worried about the Infernal Engine, but and I'm not worried about the rocket batteries, but the naphtha throwers are a real problem. I think what it's going to come down to is if I time things correctly, especially if I get the first turn, and I get into him quickly, I think I'll be okay. Because the Miss Leviathan making his blunderbusses hit on 6s is a big deal.
Yeah.
And then the distortion emblem on the cavalry means I could probably get them into something that I want. If I go second and I'm not able to get into him and I have to respect the NAFTA throwers, my hope is that my repeater batteries, which outrange a lot of his stuff, can like really grind down his blunderbuss units so that I can start tackling things like late game. Yeah.
First or second is really going to matter for you here, because if you go first, you go all out offense and like get to him while you're under the protection of that -1 to hit. But like you said, if you go second, you're kind of playing a keep away game almost.
Yeah, where I like contest the objectives and I'm hoping my shooting can whittle down his stuff.
Try to get in behind with the black cloaks and like deal with the naphtha throwers. If you can deal with the naphtha throwers, you can go at the list.
Yeah. If the Miss Leviathan can get to the NAFTA throwers too, like that's pretty clutch.
It does have fly, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting matchup. Like it's scary for me, but I do think I have tools. So I think in the end it's going to be a competitive game. But to your point, Chris, whether I get first or second is going to dictate a lot of my strategy, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Nice. Well, best of luck. Let's keep it moving. All right.
So this matchup is happening specifically because James is unable to make it round 1 on Saturday morning. He has another commitment. So this matchup will actually be played out Friday night.
Oh, nice.
Which is why this is happening, because Mike said that he'd be willing to play him Friday night for round 1. So this is a game that we've run many a times. Mike versus James. I wouldn't normally have done this matchup round 1, but again, we were trying to allow James to actually play the full tournament.
And the good thing about that too, actually, it gives another. Mike still plans. He'll still plan on.
Yeah, he'll still be there in the morning.
So he's almost acting as like another like rules volunteer for that first round for us, because it's just like, it's this new edition. We're all trying our best to figure it out, and so that just gives extra hands on deck. So we appreciate you, Mike, for doing that.
Yeah, 100%. Especially since we ended up with an odd number of people, so I ended up playing. I actually kind of didn't want to play because I wanted to be available to, watch over the games and rules, be a rules reference and that kind of stuff. But since we had an odd number of people, I ended up playing. So having Mike around for that first round will be really helpful.
All right, so let's get into James' list here.
You want me to take this one?
No, I want this one.
All right, take it.
I want this one. So we've got a Monster Hunter Revenant. I think the monstrous revenants for vampires are looking very, very juicy these days, because they just do so much.
It's only height 4, so it doesn't trigger artillery. It's honestly a solid mount. Like, it is a really good mount. Like, I'm running one as well.
And I have a question about it too. Because the Monstrous Revenant has a 3-up armor save innately. Does that stack with the armor that the vampire takes?
No. So the way that works is if the mount has a C on its profile, it cares about what the vampire has on it. Or if it's like C plus whatever, it cares about what the rider has. Otherwise, it only, so like in this case, the Monstrous Revenant has armor 4. So it doesn't matter what armor you're wearing, your armor 4. The only thing that would go around this is he has a Lamia vampire, which sets your armor to 1. Which I'm pretty sure overrides the mount, but
I don't
may have to double check that.
No,
I think James played it right where he got around that by putting him on.
Did he? All right.
Because I think
that's one I'm not sure of. He would be the one to know it for specifically the vampire book. I was under the impression sets happened last in the order.
Well, the wording is the bearer is set to a 6-up armor,
right?
But not the model. So the model.
Got it. The model in this scenario, okay.
See, James is very tricksy.
James is very tricksy.
Like, I'm going to get around this. There's a loophole to this.
That's why I haven't been using Lamia, because like it's 6-up armor. I'm like, oh no, I don't want this.
Well, sorry to burst everyone's, or maybe I guess James is a more of his tricks here. But if you notice with Lamia, he has light armor, so like things with metal armor or like anything keyword metal armor won't get the bonus against it.
Yeah, because it loses metal armor.
But that's the only version of that Revenant that has the light armor, so it's like all the others would get that. So
yeah,
he's
I was under the impression he wouldn't get any armor. That's why I hadn't been looking at this.
So he's got the Eternity Gem, so it's just a very tough, tough creature to bring down. Gates of the Netherworld for the extra heal, I believe, and then we've got Master of Cosmology. Is again taking the I think obligatory Mimic Cloak for Necromancers here.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a Strigoi, Unbreakable Will, Vampire going in Ghouls. We've got some Devouring Darks going off, so some range damage threats here. More Gates of the Netherworld. So there's actually quite a bit of healing going on in this list. Not too much combat buffs, I would say, but it's more focused around like kind of the tricks and the healing, I think. And Cosmic Scales is still good.
So Gates of the Netherworld is one of those things that you can have up to 3 of, and you probably want as close to that as possible, because as soon as you lose all of your Gates of the Netherworld models, your army starts falling apart. Now, the other thing it does is if you are a caster, you either get an extra spell or +1 res, depending on if you took evocation or not. If you took evocation and you cast a raise, you count as +1 resurrection value for that raise. Whereas if you take something that isn't evocation, you get given the number 1 spell at evocation.
So that's nice. He's also, here's something I think that's really cool. He's got this Barrow King in there. It's just captain attached, light troops. That's it. But it's a nice little tech piece in here, because when you put it when you put it into the Barrow Guard, it makes that unit a lot more independent. So he doesn't need to be in a march bubble with them, and they get Dying Blow, so they're always going to be striking with their great weapons on you, and they have the +1 to hit banner. So like that's a surprisingly good unit in my opinion. And then we got ghouls. We got the big 6 unit of Bat Swarms, which again I think James's Magic setup doesn't quite support the Bat Swarms as well, because Bat Swarms, I mean swarms in general, there was a lot of talk with like the design in 3.0 with how swarms should be and how ridiculous they were and still possibly are. But yeah, those Bat Swarms are like no joke.
For anybody that isn't aware, Bat Swarms are very annoying because they not only afflict -2 offense, but they're also -1 to hit. So they're taking 1 off your offense, and then that probably dropped you down to hitting them on 4s, and then they're also -1 to hit, so now you're hitting them on 5s.
And they have like what, 4 or 5 health points?
5 health apiece.
Yeah,
they're just annoying.
So, and if you can imagine, I think each base gets, is it 5 attacks, right? Like it's either 5 or 6 attacks.
It's 5 or 6 attacks. They're piddly, but it's
8. It's like
6 attacks, offense 2, strength 2, AP 1.
Right, and so a lot of that. If you can imagine, just for a second, if like having a spectral blades on that unit, all of a sudden making that unit.
Now it's worth noting he did not take evocation at all.
Right, exactly.
He took 2 occultism and a cosmetology. Right,
and that's kind of circles back to my previous point. But still, that this unit will really like tar pit a unit, because it's just a massive health pool. That's hard to chew through. He's got some Dire Wolves, the Barrow Guard, like I said earlier. He's got some Vampire Knights with the Stalker Standard. And then I think Vampire Spawn have gotten a nice little buff here because, again, of the way that Frenzy work, as Ryan, you were explaining earlier. So he's got some of these more independent, fast flanking units here. And then, going back to that Monster Hunter, I mean, that's a pretty reliable combat unit too. You got rerolls to wound with the great weapon. I think he's got a reroll to hit in the first round of combat, if I'm not mistaken. I forgot what the Lamia one does, but there's all these different effects going off on that Revenant.
Lamia is distracting 1 if height 1 to 4. Guess what he is, because he's height 4, and Elven Finesse.
There you go.
Yeah, I took notes on this guy. I'll just say flat out, James, this is my favorite character build in the whole event. Like, this guy is like the Mike Tyson of the characters.
No, it really is.
Like,
especially with that Lamia Revenant trick.
Yeah, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, right? Like, this guy, like, you know he's coming for you, and there's nothing you can do about it. He has 3-up, 4-up. He's distracting.
Yep.
He uses a great weapon, but it's still agility 6.
Because Elven Finesse, and that great weapon rerolls to hit and wound on the charge, because Eldritch Inscriptions.
Yep. He's multi-wounds 2 against 4 or 5 height.
Yep.
He's strength 7, AP 4 with that rerolls to hit, rerolls to wound. And then the Revenant gets 4 attacks at strength 5, AP 2, lethal, and poison.
Well, you're forgetting he's also immune to lethal strike, multiple wounds, and poison because of that Eternity Gem.
Right. With 5 wounds, and he can heal himself. So, like, I don't honestly see any way that people are going to be able to kill this character in any matchup. The only way you're going to kill this character is if you combat res him to death. Like, this character is unbelievable. It's so good.
You know, you outdid yourself on this one, James.
Now the matchup I want to see though is this Revenant versus the Griffin, the Nova Flare guy. Like, I want to see that go down.
Yeah,
but yeah, I'll have to take notes on that one, James, because I like what you've done there. With I keep harping on it, but that because I've been looking through the vampire book myself lately. That Lamia the Lamia Revenant, I read that and went, oh, why would I do this? I'd go back down to a 6-up armor. But if it does actually go in that direction, that's a nice one right there.
And this list is way more meat and potatoes than I'm used to seeing from James. James is usually like a little subtlety, finesse, gonna dance around.
Guard, bats, vampire knights. It's
very
traditional vampire covenant.
Yeah, anvils and hammers, man. That's what he's going with. So I like it.
All right, let's get into Mike's going on. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Nobody else plays lizards. Nobody knows what anything in this list is. I can make some guesses if you want.
So I got as far as the characters. Otherwise, you'd have to.
So man's got a frog, master of alchemy. So obviously he's taking magic because it's a frog, right? It's lizards are one of the people that I would have expected to take magic. Yeah. The Farseeing Mastery is increased range. The Invasive Mastery is actually hilarious because if you cast a spell, he can cast that spell next turn.
That's my favorite rule.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so good.
That's funny.
So if James heals, can he just take the heal, like the raise, or do the units?
Well, he doesn't have a resurrection value is the problem.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Because Arise specifically casts on whatever your resurrection value is, and he just doesn't have one, so it wouldn't do anything for him. But technically, yes, he could cast it.
And he gains stand behind and Strider, and he can't issue or accept duels, which is nice. So.
Yeah, because he's closely guarded. Oh, apparently that item doesn't let you take the hereditary, so he wouldn't be able to cast it. Skink Veteran on a Taurusar. This is a dude with a big bow. It's just a
and a lot of attacks. Don't forget that.
It's a Stegodon with a bow and a bunch of attacks. It's an interesting character. I'm not sure how it's been working out for him. I ran face first into it once and nearly killed it, and then it killed me back. So
he's got 6 attacks with poison. Not bad.
And then we've got the Tegu Veteran, who is also a wizard. Shamanism, Savage Fury, great weapon with Eldritch Inscriptions, Imbued Jade, which is an additional channel. So he's at what, channel 2, 3, Wizard Conclave down there. It's only 1, so he's channel 3 so far, from what I can tell. Cayman Mentor, Combat Artist. Combat Artist is, give me a second on that one. He gets the Tooth and Claw and attached. All right.
Those Cayman Mentors are also, they're surprisingly good. They'll
for like 90 points. Yeah, they just kind of pop out of nowhere. And Another Wizard Conclave came in. Yeah, okay. Tooth and Claw, Standard Bearer, Flaming Standard. What does the Rending Banner do?
It's just an additional AP.
Is that a basic banner?
Yeah.
All
Common,
right.
or no, not common. No, it's shared.
It's one of the shared banners. Yeah. All right. See you, James.
Nice.
James
he can't stand our our analysis of this matchup.
James said the frog, beware the frog.
The frog is very annoying to deal with.
The frog.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a couple blocks of infantry. He's got the Tegu Mystic blocks. He's got casters all over the place. He's like Channel 4. I am really interested to see how this works out. I think alchemy is better than people are giving it credit for at the moment. So Quicksilver Lash is nasty. Plus, with the Corruption of Tin, he can force you to have metal armor and then rip it off of you.
Yikes.
Take that, Lamia.
Yeah, he can point it and be like, oh, by the way, -1 save and metal armor, and now Quicksilver Lash. Like, alchemy's solid. Yeah, no, I like this list. The Pterodon Riders with the Poison Javelins, his block of Tegu Guard to hold the Archmage. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any comments on this list. It's a pretty standard Lizard list, really heavy on the magic, in my opinion, but
it's definitely a lot of beef, I think.
Yeah, it is just a lot of beef, a lot of Saurus and dinosaurs.
And you do have to be wary of those mystics. They're light troops, and they have like I think 3 attacks per model, and they're distracting innately. And so when you compare that, and then you combine that with all the different magic buffs you can give them, and then they can give themselves, like they have to discard, I think, a magic dice or something like that, and then give themselves a fortitude save. So like they can be surprisingly either resilient or punchy all in one go.
Yeah, they're 3 attacks apiece, offense 4 with +1 to hit, strength 4, AP 1, and they have, which cantrip do they have? Mystics, cantrips,
Fountain of Youth, Whispers.
Yeah, so the cantrips, they can discard dice to either get fortitude or a shooting weapon. So like it's a solid unit, honestly.
So yeah, matchup wise, I mean, James and I have been discussing this.
I think Mike's got this one, and James was saying the same thing.
So yeah, I think, and then given the primary as well, I think I do think Mike has the advantage here.
He has more staying power on those objectives than James does.
Yeah,
let that vampire go wild, man.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really what he has to. He has to make sure that. I think what's happened here is there's actually quite a bit of, if Mike goes first, that's like there's actually a surprising amount of shooting in the list combined with the magic damage, and it can really just force James to just spend all his magic turn like trying to heal back up while being pressured from all.
He's got the Pterodon Riders, the Great Bow. He's got the magic shooting, which shouldn't be discounted. He's got the Tegu Mystics, which can get a 18-inch range gun. It's strength 2, but it's still a gun. Like it is he can just kind of pull a surprising amount of shots out. The Skink Hunters with the Poison Javelins.
Yeah, there's and that's kind of the experience. And James, like I said, we both have experience playing this list, and like when this list gets to go first, Mike's list, it can put a surprising amount of pressure on you. Ugh, that didn't sound nice. So yeah, I do think it's Mike's. Mike has the advantage here, but
Yep.
You can't count James out in this.
I'd never count James out. He's a very good player. He pulls wins from behind that I did not expect him to have more often than he probably should.
Ryan, any thoughts?
I don't know enough about the Lizard book. I haven't played them. I've only had I think 3 games in 3.0. But I know Mike and James as players, and I agree. James is a good player. It sounds like from what James has said, Mike has the advantage.
Yeah.
But I do think that if James plays aggressively with that vampire, as long as he doesn't get magicked off the board, like I think he's got a shot at it. So I would anticipate that this game ends with a close score either way. Like
I think this is another one that, like you're saying, will really depend on who goes first as the outcome of it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, best of luck to everyone there. Oh boy. All right, 2 more. Let's go. We got this. Thinking of work in the morning. Sorry. I'm sure we all got lives. Okay, so we got Ben. Let's see if we can get through these a bit quicker. Here we go. Warriors. We got Ben versus you, the Ringer.
Yep. Master of Alchemy. Again, same. I think 4 spells for Alchemy. It's honestly really solid. It's a pretty standard warrior list from what I can tell. The Chosen Lord. He's got the Missile Lord, Wrath, Demonic Wings, Shield Breaker, Immortal Gauntlet. So he's discarding he's discarding dice for like either Flaming or Divine or something. Block of Warriors, Sloth, Zealot's Banner, great weapon. Sloth Warriors have been really popular. Tunes to Chaff for Warhounds, Tunes Chosen, 10 Chosen Halberds, Sloth. Again, Sloth combined with Halberd have been really popular. And then 9 Chosen Wrath. I'm assuming the Chosen Lord's going to hang out with the 9 Chosen and then just randomly jump out and do silly things. But he also has a Hellmaul, so I got to watch out for the teleporting, some shenanigans with it. And I don't have like cannons or anything to try and pop the Hellmaul. So I have to figure out how to go get rid of that, or he's just going to appear in front of me with way too many Chosen.
Yeah, that's tough.
It is 29 Chosen, 30 if you count the Chosen Lord. Like, it's a lot of Chosen. Right. The warrior block is mostly there to hold the sorcerer because he's on the platform, the war dais. Yeah, it's. I mean, we were talking about James writing a meat and potatoes warrior or a vampire list. I think this is a pretty meat and potatoes Warriors of Chaos list. It's a bunch of Chaos warriors on foot. He doesn't have any knights. He doesn't have
one a finesse warriors list. That's for sure.
No, it's he's gonna teleport blocks of Chosen on top of me.
And yeah, just come get you. All right, your list. Tell us about it.
So this is my the second half of this list is an attempt to actually play into the ghost theme that I'm modeling my units as. I've been very disappointed by the Dark Coach and the Spectral Hunters for like 3 games now, but I love the Dark Coach model, so I'm gonna keep running it, but it hasn't turned out too well. My take on the Flying Vampire Lord is Sangreal, Crimson Rage on the Monstrous Revenant with Vorpal Lance and Talisman of Shielding. So I've got, Hatred, Fury, rerolling my vampiric rolls and, Vorpal Lance. So it's was strength 7 or something silly like that. Where's the vampire book?
Yeah, strength 7.
Yeah, strength 7, AP 4 on the charge.
Yep.
And you have to reroll all your special saves. I've had this man do a lot of really good things for me. I think it's a good build. I think I like James's a little better for what it's doing. But this is essentially my only real answer for his Hellmaul. It's here, go get it, basically. So we'll see how that goes. And then I have, again, Death Star. I have a 60 block of skeletons with a sheltering standard, spear and shield. Vampire counts Strigoi Gold Lord in with the skeletons to give them poison. So I have a block of poison spears. Goblins eat your heart out.
And they have parry, right?
They do have parry because of the hypnotic pendant. That guy's got True Thirst hand weapon, so he's healing himself. Warding of Unity, so he's he doesn't have any armor, but he's got a fortitude and he's resistant to melee attacks. And then you have the Courtier BSB, who is Vitala, so she can raise the bats above starting, which is why I have 2 units of 4 bats instead of units of 6 bats. Unbreakable Will, so the skeleton unit is stubborn. And Destiny's Call, she's really there to make that skeleton unit never go anywhere, because this is another instance of a block that has a lot of ranks, so it's probably going to be steady and steadfast with stubborn and a BSB and everything. So it's that skeleton unit has done very good things in most of the games I've played it in. It was not able to go head to head with the other Death Star that I had in the Ogre list. That one won, but other than that, it has done really well. 2 units of 4 bats, again, because bats are really annoying, and I have the ability to raise them above starting. And then we get into my kind of sort of ghostly contingent. I have a Dark Coach hanging out with Spectral Hunters and Wraiths. The entire way this list is designed is I can deploy like my skeletons and bats and vampire knights like over here, and then the Spectral Hunters, Wraiths, and Dark Coach over on the other side of the board, because the Dark Coach has a 6-inch bubble of autonomous. So they go do their own thing while my block, this say here, and they come in the side. It hasn't worked out. Everybody basically just ignores the skeleton blocks and murders the Dark Coach. It's happened like 4 games in a row now. So maybe I need to rethink my strategy. But other than that, it's been a really solid list. The Vampire Knights, really good. Again, Stalker standard. I think it's the same block that James had. Overall, it's a block skeletons, 2 things of bats, kind of a bit of a ghostly contingent. Pretty straightforward, honestly.
How many chosen can that skeleton unit kill?
That's a great question. Probably not enough.
For the chosen that's what it's going to come down to.
The last couple times I fought warriors, it came down to me making good combo charges with my Vampire Lord and my Vampire Knights to be able to like chew through and break things. But I don't know. Those chosen are a problem, because those are 20 like 4-up save, -1 to wound monster. Like how many wounds they have? Like
they have 2 each.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So they're 20 wounds. I do have poison spears.
And your ghosts actually have fantastic targets. I mean, having the AP-10 between their weapons and the sweeping attacks on the wraiths, like they've got some juicy targets.
I think I really do have some good targets for this one. He doesn't have anything that's really fast, so I think I'll be good there, because that's been my big issue with the ghosts is I have to attempt to make a long charge on something, and then I don't make it, and then it gets countercharged. But he doesn't really have anything that's that fast. I'm going to be outspeeding him with that entire contingent. So
you say that, however, I think the Helma is what gives all those chosen units.
But he's going to teleport them, and they can't charge that turn. I still get another turn between the chosen unit showing up and it being in combat with me.
This is a really interesting matchup. I'm very curious how this all turns out. But yeah, that skeleton block is no joke, man. Like they're
it's a unit.
They're parry, poison, stubborn, with healing, and they have the vampires in there, like providing combat rest through their wounds. Like
I am maxed character points, so that is 1,600 points of characters, and a good 1,000 of it is in that skeleton block.
I would say to you, Chris, I would not spread my army out in this matchup, though.
No, I don't think that needs to happen in this matchup.
Because Ben will pick off your units that you leave alone.
Yes.
Like I don't think your units are going to hold up on their own. But if you keep,
I need to be combo charging like into the side of whatever's fighting the skeletons and everything.
Yeah, you need a tight formation for sure. But really interesting matchup. This will be cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, best of luck. We're getting to the final showdown between 2 Titans of Ninth clubmates. We got Billy on Demons and Brandon on Warriors.
13 points short. What are we doing?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
What are we doing, Billy?
Well, now musicians and standards, depending on the unit, are like 15 points.
sometimes. So
Oh, okay.
It might be that weird, awkward place where he's just like, I can't put anything else in here.
so we took a maw.
Yep. So he's got the maw. He's got adaptive evo. He's got the dance. So he got a little bit of movement there. Touch the Reaper, whispers, Iron Husk, Brimstone to help out against
Divine,
and then chit in the scales. So that, again, that extra save, like the armor. And he's got an omen, like the duelist demon, smite the unbeliever, weight of judgment, holy affliction. Someone will have to kind of help me on those thaumaturgy spells because I'm not quite there. But he's got guided brimstone. So that goes into some succubi. I'm assuming. Yeah, that's definitely going in the succubi there.
Smite is a it's the rank 1 spell. It's a missile, strength 5 AP 2, which thaumaturgy does the up and down thing, so it gets better or worse or whatever. Weight of judgment is setting the target's agility to 1, and then depending on how you roll, it either sets everything in contact with them to 1 or the unit as well, like ally or enemies kind of thing. So you either just make the entire combat initiative 1, yourself included, or just the enemy. And then Holy Affliction is a -1 to wound. That can either subtract or add an AP to the enemy.
That's nice.
Which he just doesn't care about because he's demons. So it's just a -1 to wound spell for him.
Well, wasn't it? Does it add, would it add AP to his units, or?
So if you, the way it works is it's a hex that the unit suffers -1 to wound, and if you roll a 5 or 6 with the dice for thaumaturgy, because after you cast a spell with thaumaturgy, you roll a die. On a 1, bad things happen. On a 5 or 6, you get the beneficial effect. So if you roll a 5 or 6 for the die, it also applies -1 AP to the unit. If you roll a 1 on the die, it gives them +1 AP. So the spell becomes -1 to wound +1 AP. But he's demons, so what does he care about AP?
Exactly.
Except for maybe the chitinous scales up there, but that's about it.
So we got 2 units of imps that are, I believe, all seeing eyes accurate. Spears of Infinity. We got 6 clawed fiends with piercing spike. So they have more AP there. Now, for me, my personal preference on clawed fiends right now is still just the mesmerizing plumage, because they still need to hit things. Yeah. But they're a fast combat unit with a lot of health points with the 5 of Aegis. You've got a nice blazing glory in here as well with brimstone, just to protect himself a little bit. So we got more AP coming in. We got 2 mage blade gremlins just for getting in the way of things.
Now, I like poison because the gremlins already have poison and they have a lot of attack. So if you put poison on top of them, they become poison on 5-up. I like that on the gremlins, not on natural roots, but I get where he's going with unnatural roots.
Sure.
It's just a static +1 combat res.
Right. I think with Billy's concern is just with only 2 models, you're paying a lot for that poison versus it might make more sense to just do a bigger unit with all that poison if you're going to pay for it, right?
I mean, it's per model though, isn't it?
Yeah. But it's just, I think that was just the cheaper option, and you just,
Oh, it's definitely cheaper. So
then you've just got 4 bloatflies, doing bloatfly things, and 5 furies to get in the way of stuff. So
interesting.
This isn't a standard Billy list, because usually when I've played him, he's had a demon gun line, if you will.
Yeah.
But he still likes to bring the omen, which is cool. I think, and the omen now has, I think, just a 4 up Aegis all the time. Is that it? Or
I'll check.
They've changed it around a little bit. But there's a bit of combat here now.
It's a 4 up Aegis versus magical attacks, 5 up all the time.
5 up all the time. Okay, there you go. So yeah. Yeah, cool. I'm curious to see how it goes. I like the maul. I think the maul's fun. Just a big beefy model that has a lot of health points.
That's the thing that gets health back and then explodes if it gets too big, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if Brandon thinks it's fun.
Going into Brandon's list from there. Let's see. Oh yeah.
So this is one that we've been talking about because I've played Brandon 2 or 3 times over the past couple weeks, and he's been kind of unsatisfied with how he's been playing Warriors. So we've been slowly crafting this together. He really likes the Exalted Herald, and honestly, it's worked really well in the games we've played. So he kept the Exalted Herald. He pulled back on, before he was running 2 Chimeras, he pulled back on one of the Chimeras. He just has the one Chosen Lord on Chimera. He's pretty angry. The paired weapons with Touch of Greatness on top of the standard Chosen Lord. He's coming in at he's like Strength 6 AP4 or something silly like that. The Mortal Gauntlets, so he can pick up Flaming or Divine or whatever. So he's good at just turning things, running into a unit and be like, hey, you don't get any saves anyway. Don't worry about it. Plus with the Aether icon on the trophy rack, so he's got the extra +1, the charge and being a bit in the trophy rack thing, and so it's a pretty good unit. Then he's got the second Chosen Lord. This is an Entropic Aura Chosen Lord of Wrath on a horse that's going in probably the 9-man Warrior Knight unit, which is Lance Wrath, Stalker Standard. Then he's got a smaller Warrior Knight unit, which is Lance Wrath, Stalker Standard. 5 Flayers. These are more of a chaff unit. 2 blocks of Sloth Warriors with Banners of Speed, so they don't have to march. They can just move 6 inches a turn. It's a really straightforward Warriors list. He's 2 blocks of Warriors, 2 blocks of Knights, and a unit of Flayers, some big characters. That's what it is.
Very symmetrical.
Yes.
He's gonna come at you.
He's going to come at you. And that Lance Warrior Knight block, that 10-man Lance Warrior Knight block with the Chosen Lord in it, I think it's going to do some damage if it hits you. Because, their wrath, it's going to hurt.
Yeah. I like the list. It's going to be easy to play with. It's symmetrical. It's balanced. I really like those Sloth Warrior blocks with just sword and board doing spiked shield things.
Yep.
Yeah. No, this is good. I think I would give a slight nod to Brandon in this matchup. I think it's going to be a good game, but I think those Warrior blocks are going to be a real problem for Billy.
Yeah, I think they're going to be hard to shift, and I think if he gets a good charge off with that big block of Warrior Knights, I think he can just run down the line. Plus, with the Mortal Gauntlets, if that Chosen Lord gets into the right thing, he's just, you don't get a save. Obviously, the Maul of Khan and the Blazing Glory going to be ignoring that. Oh, and the Omen of Saboteur. So he is playing.
Billy took some good counters.
Yeah,
he took a lot of AP and he took a lot of defense against divine attacks, which is what's going to make this competitive, I think.
Yeah. And the Omen has guiding brimstone, so the Omen and the Succubi. So the Succubi also get there. Yeah, so actually he's got a pretty decent defense against divine.
Yeah, Chaos Civil War, man. It's gonna be a good one.
Mortals versus demons.
Well, best of luck, gents. And so that basically wraps up our matchmaking.
Yep.
Thoughts on who's going to take it?
In its entirety?
Yeah, why not? Let's go there. It's out there. Pose the question.
So I've played this game before. My money is probably on like a Mark, potentially. He's just a very good player. Plays very competitively in ETC and everything. Who do I want to win the whole thing? I want Brian to win the whole thing, but that's just a personal thing.
No bias.
Yeah, no bias. Ryan, I think you have a very good shot with what you're bringing. I think it'll be, I certainly think you've got a potentially a tough matchup round 1, but I think you've got a really strong list. And obviously, I've been on your team before. I know you have the skill to pilot it. So I'd say probably either Mark or yourself, Ryan, would be my guess.
I appreciate it. I think my money would be on Lynn because he seems like a good player, and I think he's had the most experience with 3.0. Like I played a lot, but it was 2.0.
Yeah.
I'm still learning 3.0, so I could definitely see like myself or Mark, some of the more experienced players like tripping up on some of the new rules and just things like that. I think Lynn's in a strong position. And I think he's got a good first round matchup too.
He's got a good list. I just haven't had the personal pleasure of playing against Lynn yet, so I don't know how he is as a player. So I couldn't factor that into my my own thought process.
I think my money is also probably leaning towards Mark or Lynn. And I've only played against Lynn once, just online, but that felt like a masterclass of how to get your butt kicked against Highborn elves. Yeah, it was amazing. But so I think I'm good, and I agree. Yeah, he again probably has, like you said, Ryan, the most experience out of all of us right now with 3.0, maybe aside from say James. But yes, that's where I'm heading, Mark or Lynn. I think I'm gonna pick one. I'm gonna say Lynn. It feels a little strange rooting against the Dread Elves here, but I'm going Highborn Elves. if I'm being realistic.
We'll see if I emerge from the fire and ashes. You know,
if there is going to be a book that takes it all, it's probably going to be Elves. Let's be honest. Like it's.
So, gentlemen, that being said, thank you so much for taking the time. We are at 2 hours and 21 minutes. So we rocked it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris. Both Chris.
Thanks, Chris. Oh, me too. Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. So looking forward to seeing y'all on Saturday, and best of luck.
Yeah.
Looking forward, everybody.
All right. Ciao for now.